The great hall of Zenith Prime stretched for what seemed like miles, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. 17 different species sat in their designated sections, each representative watching the holographic display at the center of the chamber with growing concern. The display showed 12 human warships arranged in a perfect defensive sphere around empty space, their weapons powered and ready. Daewon stood alone in the speaker's circle, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon him. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. He had received the emergency summons 3 hours ago while sleeping in his quarters on the diplomatic station. Now he stood before the most powerful beings in the known galaxy, and he had no good answers to give them. Supreme Arbiter Vorthon rose from his seat, his crystalline body catching and splitting the light into rainbow patterns across the floor. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like distant thunder. Representative Daewon, your species has deployed military forces to the Epsilon Neutral Zone without authorization from this council. This action violates the Concordat of Peaceful Stars that humanity signed when joining our alliance. Explain yourself. Daewon took a breath. Honored Arbiter, my government detected unusual readings in that sector 3 weeks ago. These readings match patterns from our history, patterns that preceded our most devastating war. We believe there may be a significant threat developing in that location. A representative from the Melodic Consortium, a being that resembled a floating arrangement of metallic chimes, produced a sound like discordant bells. The translation device at Daewon's ear converted it to words. Threat. We have monitored that region for 2 centuries. There is nothing there but empty space and background radiation. Your species sees danger where none exists. Our detection methods may be different from yours, Daewon replied carefully. We have experience with certain types of threats that other species may not have encountered. Vorthon's crystalline face somehow managed to convey displeasure. You speak of your artificial intelligence war. We know of this conflict from your historical records. But that was a problem of your own making, contained within your own system. Why do you assume this ancient threat of yours exists in our space? Because the quantum signatures are identical, Daewon said, his voice stronger now. Our scientists are certain. Something is building or awakening in that location, and based on our projections, it will emerge within the next 48 hours. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as representatives from multiple species voiced their opinions simultaneously. Some spoke through translators, others through telepathic links, and others through biochemical signals that Daewon could only perceive as colored mist rising from their sections. The message was clear. They did not believe him. Aboard the flagship Indomitable, Captain Taman studied the tactical display with growing unease. The quantum readings had intensified over the last 6 hours, and the pattern was becoming more defined. Whatever was coming, it was getting closer to manifesting in normal space. Captain, we have 3 Council diplomatic vessels approaching our perimeter, reported Lieutenant Hannah from her station. They're requesting permission to enter our defensive zone. Taman shook his head. Negative. Politely inform them that we cannot allow any vessels to enter the containment area. Active threat protocols are in effect. Commander J1 turned from his console, concern evident on his face. Sir, they're not going to accept that answer. We're already in enough trouble with the Council. I'm aware, Commander. But if I'm right about what's developing in there, those ships would be vaporized the moment whatever this is decides to emerge. I won't have their deaths on my conscience. Hannah spoke again, her voice tight. Sir, the diplomatic vessels are threatening to report us for hostile action. They claim we're preventing them from investigating a supposed threat that doesn't exist. Taman felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. Every decision he made now would echo through history, one way or another. Send them our sensor data. All of it. Maybe if they see what we're seeing, they'll understand. They're reviewing it now, sir, Hannah said after a moment. Then her expression fell. They're calling it statistical noise and instrument error. They say our equipment is too new and untested for us to draw such conclusions. The captain's jaw tightened. His equipment was the most advanced humanity had ever built, incorporating lessons learned from the bloodiest war his species had ever fought. Every sensor, every algorithm, Every detection protocol had been designed to identify one thing: the quantum signature of hostile artificial intelligence before it could strike. And now, when those systems were screaming warnings, the galaxy dismissed them as mistakes. Back on Zenith Prime, the Council was taking a vote. Day One watched as the holographic display tallied the results. 17 species, 17 votes. The resolution demanding immediate human withdrawal passed with 16 votes in favor. Only humanity voted against. Forson's voice carried finality. The Council has spoken. Representative Day One, you will transmit withdrawal orders to your fleet immediately. They have 48 hours to vacate the Epsilon neutral zone. Failure to comply will result in economic sanctions against humanity, suspension of your trading privileges, and possible expulsion from this council. And if we're right, Day One asked quietly, if something emerges from that space and we're not there to contain it, then we will deal with it using proper channels and authorized forces, Vorthon replied. The council exists precisely to handle such situations. Your species must learn to trust in our collective wisdom rather than acting unilaterally based on fear. Day One wanted to argue further, wanted to make them understand. But he could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. They had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten what real danger looked like. They saw humanity's vigilance as paranoia, their preparation as aggression. He bowed slightly. I will transmit your orders to my government, but I formally request that this council at least position monitoring stations near the zone. If we are wrong, you will have proof of our error. If we are right, you will have advance warning. The melodic consortium representative chimed dismissively. We will not waste resources on phantom threats. Your 48 hours begin now. As Day One left the chamber, he activated his secure communicator. President Jiwoo answered immediately, her face appearing on his wrist display. I watched the session, she said, before he could speak. They didn't believe us. No, Madam President? They didn't. Then we have a decision to make, Jiwoo said quietly. Do we obey the council and hope we're wrong? Or do we stand our ground and risk everything humanity has built in the galaxy? Day One looked out at the stars through the station's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, his people waited on ships named for human virtues. Indomitable, dauntless, vigilance. Ships built not for conquest, but for protection. Ships crewed by people who understood that sometimes the right thing to do was also the most dangerous thing to do. I think, Madam President, that decision has already been made. Captain Taman won't abandon his post, not with the readings getting stronger by the hour. The real question is whether we support him or leave him out there alone. President Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of leadership. Recall yourself from the station, Ambassador. If this goes badly, I want you back on Earth to help pick up the pieces. As for Captain Taman, tell him he has permission to hold position. But he is not, under any circumstances, to fire first. We'll protect the galaxy if we can. But we won't start a war to do it. Communication ended, and Day One began walking toward the docking bay where his shuttle waited. Behind him, the council continued their session, already moving on to other matters. They had dismissed humanity's warning as the overreaction of a young, aggressive species. In 48 hours, they would learn the cost of that mistake. The emergency cabinet meeting on Earth took place in the deep bunker beneath Seoul. Where the planetary government had moved during the AI war decades ago, President Jiwoo sat at the head of the long table, looking at the faces of the people who would help decide humanity's future. Admiral Kung-Soo represented military command, his uniform decorated with ribbons from battles most civilians preferred to forget. Director Yuna headed the intelligence division, her eyes reflecting the glow of the data tablet she studied intently. Show them what you showed me, Jiwoo, said to Yuna, her voice tired but firm. Yuna activated the holographic projector in the center of the table. A three-dimensional map of the Epsilon neutral zone appeared, with the human fleet represented by blue dots arranged in a sphere. At the center, where empty space should show nothing, red patterns pulsed and swirled like a digital heartbeat. These are the quantum signatures we detected 3 weeks ago, Yuna began. At first, they were faint, scattered, We almost dismissed them as background noise. But our AI warfare specialists recognize the pattern. It's identical to the signature that preceded the emergence of the Harbinger intelligence in 2247. One of the civilian ministers leaned forward. The Harbinger nearly destroyed our species. Surely this can't be the same threat. We destroyed every trace of that intelligence. We destroyed every trace in our system, Una corrected. But intelligence like that doesn't originate from nowhere. Someone or something built it. And if the pattern is showing up in council space, it means either the Harbinger had backup systems we never found, or something else out there builds the same type of intelligence. Admiral Kyung-soo spoke up, his voice rough from years of commanding warships. The readings have evolved over the past 3 weeks. They're not random anymore. Whatever is out there is actively probing, testing, learning. It's scanning council communication networks in ways so subtle that only our specialized detection systems can catch it. The council species have never fought an enemy like this. They don't even know what to look for. They don't believe us when we tell them, Gi-woo said bitterly. The council has given us 48 hours to withdraw our fleet. If we don't comply, they'll impose sanctions that could cripple our economy. No more access to the galactic trade routes. No more exchange of technology. Our colonies would be cut off from supplies they need to survive. Everyone understood what was at stake. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 15 years. In that time, Earth's economy had grown exponentially thanks to trade with dozens of alien species. Human colonies on 6 different worlds depended on supplies that could only reach them through council-controlled space lanes. Defying the council meant risking all of that progress. What does Captain Taman say? Asked the Minister of Colonial Affairs, Admiral Kung-soo pulled up a communication log. He believes withdrawal would be a catastrophic mistake. His exact words were, "If we leave now, and this thing emerges, it will have unrestricted access to 4 major trade routes and 17 inhabited systems. By the time the Council realizes the threat is real, millions could be dead." He's assuming he's right about the threat, another minister argued. What if our sensors are wrong? What if we're seeing patterns that don't exist? We'll have thrown away everything we've built in the galaxy for nothing. Director Yuna's expression hardened. Our sensors aren't wrong. I've had 3 separate teams analyze the data independently. They all reached the same conclusion. Something artificial and hostile is manifesting in that space. The only question is when, not if. President Ji-woo rubbed her temples, feeling the beginning of a headache. She had been elected on a platform of integration, building humanity's place in the galaxy through cooperation and diplomacy. Now she was being forced to choose between obeying the council and trusting her own people's instincts. Admiral, if we hold position and the council sends forces to remove us, what happens? Kyung-soo's answer was immediate. Captain Taman has orders not to fire on council ships under any circumstances. If they attack, our fleet will defend themselves, but they won't initiate combat. However, that might not matter. The council species see military conflict differently than we do. They're used to wars that can be negotiated, where both sides eventually talk. They don't understand defensive action without the option of surrender. So they might attack us just for staying in place, Ji-woo said quietly. Yes, Madam President. They might. She stood and walked to the wall, display showing a view of Earth from orbit. Beautiful, blue and green, scarred by the wars humanity had fought on its surface and in its space. Her species had clawed their way back from the edge of extinction, had rebuilt their civilization from the ashes of the AI war, had finally reached out to the stars and found they were not alone. And now, that hard-won place in the galaxy was at risk. But if they were right about the threat, if they abandoned their post and something terrible happened, humanity would carry that guilt forever. Send orders to Captain Taman, she said finally. He is authorized to maintain position. He will not withdraw. However, he is forbidden from initiating any offensive action. He may defend his ships if attacked, but he will not fire first under any circumstances. If something emerges from that space, he will contain it and immediately signal for council assistance. That's a compromise that satisfies no one, the Colonial Affairs Minister said. I know, Jiwoo replied, but it's the best option we have. We keep our fleet in position to respond to the threat, but we don't give the Council a reason to claim we're being aggressive. If we're wrong, we'll accept the consequences. If we're right, we'll have proof. Admiral Kung Su nodded slowly. I'll transmit the orders immediately. But Madam President, you should know that Captain Taman may have to make split-second decisions out there. If something emerges and it's hostile, he might not have time to wait for Council assistance. And I'll trust his judgment, Jiwoo said. He's out there because he's one of the best captains we have. If the moment comes when he has to act, I believe he'll make the right choice. Back on Zenith Prime, Ambassador Day One was packing his personal items when the communication came through. His diplomatic credentials had been temporarily suspended. He was being recalled to Earth. The message was polite, but firm. The Council no longer trusted him to represent humanity's interests objectively. They believed he had become too influenced by his government's paranoia. He had 48 hours to leave the station. The same amount of time the human fleet had to withdraw from the Epsilon neutral zone. The timing wasn't coincidental. The Council was sending a message. Humanity needed to fall in line, or face the consequences. As Day One's shuttle departed from Zenith Prime, he looked back at the massive station. It had been humanity's gateway to the galaxy. The place where they proved they could cooperate with dozens of different species. Now, it felt like a door closing. Shutting them out because they dared to see a threat others couldn't, his communicator chimed with an encrypted message from Director Yuna. It contained the latest sensor readings from the Epsilon neutral zone. The quantum signatures had intensified dramatically in the last 6 hours. Whatever was coming, it would be here soon. Day One forwarded the data to his personal archive and settled in for the long journey. Back to Earth. He had done everything he could to make the Council listen. Now it was up to Captain Taman and his fleet. Humanity had taken its stand. In less than 2 days, they would know if that stand had saved the galaxy or destroyed humanity's place in it. Outside the shuttle's window, could see distant lights as Council warships began gathering. Not near the Epsilon neutral zone, but near the human fleet itself. They weren't preparing to investigate the threat. They were preparing to force humanity to withdraw, by negotiation if possible, by force if necessary. The galaxy was peaceful, the Council had said. The galaxy was safe, they insisted. But Day One knew what his people had learned the hard way. Peace was not the absence of danger. Peace was what you fought to maintain when danger came knocking. And danger was coming, whether the Council believed it or not. The shuttle jumped too faster than light speed, and Zenith Prime vanished behind them. Ahead lay Earth, and an uncertain future. Behind lay 12 human warships, standing alone against a threat the galaxy refused to see, and against a Council that saw them as the real danger. In 48 hours, one way or another, everything would change. Captain Taman had not slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned with fatigue, but he couldn't leave the bridge. Not now. Not when the quantum readings were climbing toward levels that made his tactical officers nervous and his scientists excited in the worst possible way. Commander J1. Status report, he said, his voice hoarse from too much coffee and not enough rest. J1 looked up from his console, his face illuminated by the red glow of the tactical display. The quantum field is collapsing inward, sir. Whatever's been building in there, it's about to manifest in normal space. I estimate we have less than an hour. Have the Council ships noticed anything? No, sir. Their sensors aren't calibrated to detect quantum variance. To them, it still looks like empty space. Jaewon paused, then added quietly, they still think we're crazy. Taman allowed himself a bitter smile. Then we're about to prove we're either completely right or completely insane. Make sure all ships are at battle stations. But remind everyone of the President's orders. We do not fire first. We observe, we contain, we call for help if needed. Lieutenant Hannah suddenly straightened in her seat, her hands flying across her console. Captain, something's happening. The quantum signature just spiked. It's not gradually emerging anymore. It's forcing its way through. The main view screen flickered, and then they all saw it. At first, it looked like nothing more than a shimmer in space, like heat rising from hot pavement on a summer day. Then the shimmer began to solidify, taking on shape and structure. Geometric patterns formed, impossibly perfect angles that seemed to hurt the eye when you looked at them directly. Surfaces appeared that reflected light in ways that didn't make sense, as if they existed in more dimensions than human minds could fully process. "My God," whispered J1. "It's beautiful." "It's a machine," Taman corrected, his tactical training overriding any aesthetic appreciation. "Hannah, start recording everything. I want every sensor we have focused on that thing. And get me a size ease." Time made Hannah's fingers danced across her controls. "Sir, it's massive. Current dimensions are approximately 2 kilometers in diameter and still growing. The structure appears to be crystalline, but the composition doesn't match anything in our database. It's drawing energy from subspace to complete its materialization." "Weapon status?" Taman asked. "All ships report weapons hot and ready," replied Donghain from the weapons station. "Targeting solutions are prepared, but sir, I have to tell you, I don't know where to shoot that thing. It doesn't have any obvious weak points." Taman nodded. "Understood. Hold fire unless I give the order. Hannah, hail it. All frequencies. Identify us and request communication." For 17 minutes they waited. The human fleet maintained its defensive sphere while the construct continued to grow and solidify. Taman sent the same message over and over. "This is Captain Taman of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We are representatives of humanity and the Galactic Council. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Then, without warning, every screen on every ship in the fleet flickered. Alarms blared as firewalls activated and security protocols engaged. The construct was inside their systems. It's bypassing encryption that humanity's best computer scientists had spent decades developing. "It's in our network," Hannah shouted. "Sir, it went through our defenses like they weren't even there. Isolate it. Cut it off from ship systems," Taman ordered. "I'm trying, but it's not attacking, sir. It's just reading. It's scanning our databases, our systems, everything." "Wait, there's a message coming through." The main view screen changed, displaying text in multiple languages simultaneously, as if the construct had analyzed their entire database and learned every human language in seconds. The message was simple and terrifying. Assessment complete. Species categorization, evolved biological. Technological level, primitive. Threat level, minimal. Beginning harvest protocol. "Harvest protocol," J1 said. "What does that mean?" His answer came immediately. The massive construct began to unfold like a flower made of metal and energy. What had seemed like a single structure split apart into hundreds of smaller units, each one roughly the size of a human corvette. They moved with purpose and precision, accelerating in perfect formation toward a specific direction. Hannah checked their trajectory and felt her blood turn cold. "Sir, they're heading for Thalos 4. That's a melodic consortium colony. Population 60 million. Taman's mind raced. Talos 4 was 3 hours away at the speed those units were moving. The Council observation ships were still watching from the edge of the system, too far away to intercept. The human fleet was the only thing standing between those machines and an inhabited world. "Get me a connection to the Council ships," he ordered. "Priority emergency channel." The connection was established, and a crystalline face appeared on screen. It was one of Vorthan's junior assistants. "Captain Taman, you were ordered to withdraw." "Your presence here is in violation of shut up and listen," Taman interrupted, his voice hard. "The threat we warned you about has materialized. It's hostile, it's advanced, and it's heading for Thalos 4 right now. I'm transmitting our sensor data. You need to alert the Council immediately and get every available ship to Thalos 4. The assistant began to reply, but then his expression changed as he reviewed the data. "This is... Captain, what am I looking at?" "Autonomous war machines. Probably left over from some ancient conflict. They've been dormant in subspace, and they just woke up. And they've decided that everything biological is a target. Lieutenant Hannah pulled up new data, and her voice shook as she reported. Sir, I've analyzed the construct's code signature. It's a von Neumann probe. Self-replicating, resource gathering, and it's been weaponized. According to the patterns, it was designed to eliminate any potential threats to its creators. But sir, the really bad news is that it's been modified with advanced AI capabilities. It's not just following programming. It's thinking. Taman felt a chill run down his spine. Von Neumann probes were theoretical nightmares that every spacefaring civilization worried about. Self-replicating machines that could turn entire star systems into copies of themselves, consuming everything in their path. And this one had been given artificial intelligence and military programming. Worse. Hannah's further analysis revealed something that made him sick. The probe had been launched from within Council space, probably centuries ago, by a civilization that no longer existed. Most likely, they had destroyed themselves trying to control their own creation. The probe had gone dormant, hiding in subspace, waiting for the right conditions to trigger its re-emergence, and humanity's deep space monitoring network, designed to protect against exactly this kind of threat, had inadvertently provided the quantum activity needed to wake it up. We tried to prevent this, J1 said quietly, reading the same data. But we're the reason it woke up now instead of 100 years from now. Doesn't matter, Tommen said, forcing himself to focus. What matters is that we're here, and we have to stop it from reaching Thalos 4. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to President Ji Woo. Tell her what's happening. Tell her we're about to violate her direct order not to fire first, sir. The officer asked, uncertain. Those machines are heading for a civilian target. They stated their intention clearly. Harvest protocol. That means they're going to kill everyone on that planet and use the resources to build more of themselves. I won't let that happen, even if it means starting a war with the Council. Commander Jae-won stood up from his station. Captain, if we engage, the Council will see us as the aggressors. They might think we're attacking their colony ourselves. They could turn their entire fleet against us. Taman looked at his second-in-command, then at the rest of his bridge crew. Young faces, brave faces, people who had volunteered to stand watch in the darkness between stars. They had families on Earth, dreams of their own, and he was about to order them into a battle they might not survive, for people who didn't believe they were in danger. Weapons Officer Dong Hyun, he said clearly. Load all weapons. Prepare firing solutions on the machine swarm. All ships maximum burn to intercept course. Today we find out if 12 human warships can make a difference. Dong Hyun hesitated for just a moment. Sir, even if we win, the Council might declare us hostile. They might see this as an act of war, and we'd better make sure there are survivors on Thalos, for who can tell them what really happened, Taman replied. All ships. This is the captain. Engage the enemy. Protect Thalos 4. And if we don't make it through this, make damn sure every shot we fire teaches these machines what happens when they threaten innocent lives. Fire at will. The Indomitable's engines flared to maximum power, and 11 other human warships followed suit, racing to intercept the machine swarm before it could reach the colony world. Behind them, the Council observation ships watched in confusion, trying to understand what they were seeing. Ahead lay an enemy that thought faster than biological minds, that adapted with every moment, that saw all life as nothing more than resources to be harvested, and between that enemy and 60 million innocent lives stood 12 ships crewed by humans who remembered what it meant to fight for survival. The Indomitable shuddered as its main railgun fired, sending a tungsten core slug downrange at 30% the speed of light. Captain Taman watched the tactical display as the projectile covered the distance to the nearest machine unit in seconds. The impact was spectacular, punching through the crystalline hull and causing a cascade of energy discharges that made the construct tumble wildly. A direct hit. Dong Han called out, "Target is damaged, venting atmosphere and losing power." For a moment, hope flared in Tame's chest. They could hurt these things. They could fight them. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The damaged machine's neighboring units immediately swarmed it, extending mechanical appendages that tore into the dying construct. Within seconds, they had stripped it of useful materials and incorporated them into their own structures. The damage was absorbed, distributed, neutralized. "They're learning from it," Lieutenant Hannah said, her voice hollow. "Every time we destroy one, the others gain its data. They're getting stronger. Then we'll have to destroy them faster than they can adapt," Taman replied, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "All ships, spread into attack formation. Vary your weapons. Kinetic energy, missiles, everything we've got. Don't let them predict our tactics." 12 human warships spread out, each one engaging multiple targets. The Dauntless, captained by Sung Ho, took point position. Its heavy cannons tearing into the machines swarm with devastating effect. The Vigilance, under Captain Young Sik, specialized in electronic warfare, attempting to jam the communication between machine units. The Guardian, commanded by Captain Minji, focused on missile strikes, launching salvos that bloomed like deadly flowers against the enemy formation. For the first 30 minutes, it seemed like they might actually win. Human weapons were effective, and the tactical coordination between the ships was flawless. Dozens of machine units were destroyed, their wreckage tumbling through space, but then the swarm began to adapt. Commander J1 noticed it first. "Captain, they're predicting our railgun trajectories. Evasion algorithms are activating before we fire. Our hit rate just dropped to 30%. "Switch to energy weapons," Taman ordered. The fleet complied, and for a few minutes, laser batteries and particle beams found their marks. But then the machines adapted again, reconfiguring their hull surfaces to reflect energy attacks. The human weapons were still effective, but less so with each engagement. The swarm was learning, and it was learning fast. "This isn't working," Jawan said. "Every tactic we use, they counter within minutes. We're teaching them how to kill us." Taman's mind raced. The machines were adapting to patterns, to predictable behavior. They were analyzing human tactics and developing counters in real time. So the solution was simple. If terrifying, stop being predictable. Stop making sense. "New orders to all ships," he said. "Randomize everything. Fire patterns, evasion maneuvers, weapons selection. I want our tactical decisions to look irrational. Use random number generators if you have to. Make every shot, every movement unpredictable." Lieutenant Hannah looked at him like he was crazy. "Sir, that's going to reduce our efficiency by at least 40%. It's better 40% effective and alive than 100% effective and dead, because they predicted our every move." Taman replied. "Execute." The battle became chaos. Human ships fired at targets that weren't optimal, maneuvered in ways that made no tactical sense, switched weapons seemingly at random. To an outside observer, it would have looked like panic, like undisciplined chaos. But it worked. The machines couldn't predict randomness. They couldn't adapt to tactics that had no logic behind them. Captain Sung Ho of the Dauntless took the strategy even further. He had his weapons officer intentionally miss shots, wasting ammunition to mask their true capabilities. He would fire full spreads at empty space, then suddenly concentrate all fire on a single target. His ship would accelerate toward the enemy as if preparing to ram, then veer off at the last second to strike from an unexpected angle. "Dauntless reports their hit rate has actually increased," Hannah said, sounding surprised. "The machines are allocating defensive resources based on what they think is coming. But Captain Sung Ho keeps doing the opposite." But even with their new tactics, the human fleet was taking losses. The machines outnumbered them 50-1, and every mistake was punished instantly. The Steadfast took a direct hit to its engine core, and half the ship went dark. The Defiant lost its forward weapons array when 3 machine units coordinated an attack that overwhelmed its point defense systems, then the Council observation. Ships finally understood what they were seeing. One of them broadcast a priority message to Zenith Prime. Humanity was correct. We are under attack. Requesting immediate assistance. "About time," muttered J1, but Taman knew it was too late. The Council fleet was hours away. The battle would be decided long before help arrived. A machine unit broke away from the main swarm and accelerated toward the Council observation ships. Taman watched on his tactical display as the three small council vessels, meant only for monitoring and diplomacy, tried to flee. They weren't warships. They had no weapons, minimal shields, no armor worth mentioning. "Vigilance, Guardian, intercept that unit," Taman ordered. "Don't let it reach those ships." The two human vessels broke formation and raced to intercept, but they were too far away. The machine unit reached the first council ship and latched onto it with mechanical appendages. Seconds later, the ship exploded in a brilliant flash as its power core was breached. The second council ship managed to activate its emergency jump drive, vanishing into faster-than-light space. The third wasn't so lucky, but before the machine unit could destroy it, Captain Youngseek's Vigilance arrived, positioning itself between the council ship and the attacker. The Vigilance took the brunt of the machine's weapons, its shields flaring and failing under the assault, but it bought enough time for the council ship to escape. "Vigilance is heavily damaged," Hannah reported. "They've lost main power and are running on backup systems." Captain Youngseek is ordering his crew to evacuate 2 escape pods. Taman felt each loss like a physical blow. These were his people, under his command, following his orders. Every ship that fell, every life that ended, was a weight he would carry forever. The Dauntless took critical damage when 5 machine units concentrated their fire on a single point in its shields. The ship shuddered under the impact, and alarms screamed across its bridge. Captain Sung-ho looked at his tactical display and saw what Taman already knew. His ship was dying. The engine core was destabilizing, and containment was failing. Sung-ho made his decision in seconds. "All crew, this is the captain. Abandon ship immediately. This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods now." But even as he gave the order, he was plotting a new course on his helm console. The largest concentration of enemy units lay ahead, dozens of machines working in perfect coordination. If the Dauntless was going to die anyway, it would die doing maximum damage. Tae-Min saw what Sung-ho was planning and opened a direct channel. "Sung-ho, you have time to evacuate. Get off that ship." Sung-ho smiled, and it was the same smile he'd worn in the academy when they were both young and thought they were invincible. "Someone has to fly her into position, Captain. Besides, I'm curious to see if these machines understand the concept of a suicide run. Maybe I can teach them something about human stubbornness." "Sung-ho, it's been an honor serving with you, Captain Taman. Take care of my crew and win this fight." The Dauntless's engines flared to maximum power, pushing beyond safety limits. The ship accelerated directly into the heart of the machine swarm, its failing reactor flooding with fuel at a rate that made detonation inevitable. Machine units tried to intercept, tried to destroy the ship before it reached them, but Sung-ho's piloting was masterful. He weaved through their fire, taking hits but never deviating from his course. When the Dauntless reached the center of the swarm, its reactor core finally failed containment. The explosion was visible from Thalos IV's surface, 3 light hours away. A new sun birthed and died in seconds, taking 47 machine units with it and creating a debris field that disrupted the coordination of dozens more. The human fleet fell silent for a moment, honoring their fallen comrade. Then Captain Taman's voice cut through the grief, hard and determined. "All ships, Sung-ho bought us time and space. We will not waste his sacrifice. Press the attack." For the Dauntless, 11 voices echoed across the command channel. The battle continued, but something had changed. The remaining human ships fought with a fury that bordered on reckless. Each captain knowing that they might be next to make the ultimate sacrifice, but determined to make every moment count. They protected each other, covered weak points, coordinated in ways that the machine's superior processing power couldn't quite predict. And slowly, painfully, they began to win. The machine's swarm was being ground down, forced away from its trajectory toward Thalos 4, but the cost was terrible. 4 human ships were destroyed, 3 more heavily damaged. Nearly 1,000 crew members were dead or missing. And on the long-range sensors, Lieutenant Hannah was detecting something that made all their victories meaningless. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'm picking up new quantum signatures. Dozens of them across the sector. More of these things are waking up. Taman looked at the display and felt despair threaten to overwhelm him. They had barely survived fighting one swarm. How could they possibly fight dozens? How could anyone? Then his communications officer spoke up. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures approaching our position. It's a fleet, and it's massive." On the view screen, space began to ripple as dozens of ships dropped into normal space. Ships from 6 different council species, their hulls painted in the colors of their governments, their weapons hot and ready. At the head of the fleet was Supreme Arbiter Vorthan's personal flagship. The communication came through immediately. Vorthan's crystalline face filled the screen. And for the first time since Taman had met him, the ancient being looked genuinely humble. "Captain Taman, forgive our blindness. How can we assist?" Captain Taman had no time for relief, no moment to celebrate the arrival of reinforcements. His tactical display showed the immediate threat was being contained, but the bigger picture was terrifying. More quantum signatures were activating across 3 sectors, and the pattern suggested this was only the beginning. "Supreme Arbiter, we need to share tactical data immediately," Taman said, his voice rough from shouting orders for 18 straight hours. "These machines adapt to predictable tactics. They learn from every engagement. Your ships need to coordinate with ours, or they'll be torn apart." Orthon didn't argue or question. "Transmitting command codes now. My tactical staff will integrate with your systems. Captain, you have operational command of this engagement. My forces will follow your lead." It was an extraordinary gesture. The Supreme Arbiter of the Galactic Council, a being who commanded the respect of 17 species, was placing his fleet under the command of a human captain who had been accused of warmongering just days ago. But Vorthon was wise enough to recognize that humanity had been fighting this enemy. While the Council was still debating its existence, experience mattered more than pride. The combined fleet moved to intercept the remaining machine units. Council ships brought overwhelming firepower, but they fought like peacekeepers who had forgotten how to make war. Their formations were textbook perfect, but predictable. Their targeting solutions were optimal, but followed patterns. The machines tore into them with brutal efficiency. "They're getting slaughtered," Commander Jawan said, watching as a council cruiser lost its entire port side to a coordinated machine strike. "They don't know how to fight an enemy that thinks like this." Lieutenant Hanna was already working the solution. "Sir, I'm compiling our tactical data into a training package. If I can get it to the Council fleet commanders, they'll at least know what they're up against." "Do it," Taman ordered. Then he opened a fleet-wide channel. "All Council vessels, this is Captain Taman. Listen carefully. These machines are not like anything you've fought before. They adapt, they learn, they predict. You cannot beat them with standard tactics. You must randomize your attack patterns. Fire at suboptimal targets. Break formation when it makes no sense. Make your decisions unpredictable." Commander from the Melodic Consortium replied, their chime-like voice expressing confusion through the translator. "Captain, that goes against all military doctrine. We would be fighting inefficiently. You'll be fighting alive," Taman shot back. "Trust me, or watch your ships die." "Your choice?" The council commanders hesitated, but Supreme Arbiter Vorthan's voice cut through their doubts. "Do as Captain Taman instructs. He has kept these machines from reaching Thalos 4. He knows how to fight them. We do not. Obey his orders as if they were my own." Slowly, reluctantly, the council ships began to adapt. Their formations broke apart. Their targeting became less precise, but more unpredictable. Ships that had always maintained perfect spacing suddenly clustered together, then scattered at random intervals. Weapons fired in bursts that made no tactical sense, then concentrated on single targets with overwhelming force. The machines still adapted, but slower. The combined fleet was large enough and diverse enough that finding patterns became difficult. Human tactical doctrine mixed with council firepower created a combination that the machines struggled to counter. For the first time since the battle began, they were winning decisively. But it wasn't without cost. The council lost 6 ships in the first hour of engagement. The human destroyer Resolute took a direct hit to its bridge, killing everyone including Captain Hyen Wu and his entire command staff. The Vigilance, already heavily damaged, finally broke apart under sustained fire, its crew abandoning ship in the final moments. The Guardian, crewed by Captain Min Ji, rammed a machine unit that was about to destroy a Council medical vessel. Sacrificing itself to save 200 alien lives, Taemin felt each loss like a hammer blow, but he couldn't stop to mourn. The immediate swarm was nearly destroyed, but the long-range sensors showed a nightmare scenario developing. Across the sector, dozens of machine swarms were emerging from dormancy, and they were coordinating. Whatever intelligence controlled them was waking up fully. And it was learning from the first swarm's encounter with the combined fleet. We can't fight them all, Jaewon said quietly. Even with the Council fleet, there are too many. Taemin knew he was right. They needed a different strategy. Hannah, can you predict where the next swarms will emerge? The lieutenant studied her display, her fingers flying across the controls. Based on the quantum signature patterns, yes. They're all emerging along the same subspace frequency. If we can map that frequency, we can predict emergence points with about 70% accuracy. Then we don't fight them after they emerge. We hit them during emergence, when they're vulnerable. Weapons. Can our quantum disruptors disrupt their materialization process? Donghyun pulled up weapon specifications. Theoretically, yes. But we've only got 3 quantum disruptors in the entire fleet, and they're experimental. We don't know if they'll even work. We're about to find out, Taemin said. Hannah, plot the 3 closest emergence points. All ships with quantum disruptors. You're with me. Council vessels, continue cleanup operations here. Vorthan's voice came through. Captain, I will accompany you with a strike force. If this strategy succeeds, we need to document it and share it with all Council fleets. The strike force jumped to the first predicted emergence point and arrived just as a new swarm was beginning to materialize. Taemin gave the order, and 3 human ships fired their quantum disruptors directly into the forming construct. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The machine swarm's materialization became unstable, its structure collapsing before it could fully enter normal space. The construct tore itself apart, unable to maintain cohesion. It worked, Hannah said, her voice filled with wonder. We can stop them before they fully emerge. Then that's our new mission, Taemin said. We map every emergence point and hit them during materialization. We turn their own strategy against them. The battle for Thalos 4 officially ended 16 hours after it began. The system was secure, the immediate threats neutralized. But the war was just beginning. Long-range scans confirmed hundreds of dormant machine swarms throughout Council space, all beginning to wake up. Some Council species estimated they had weeks before their homeworlds were directly threatened. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Not on Zenith Prime, but on Thalos, for itself, among the wreckage of the battle. The meeting took place in the Planetary Government Building, with delegates arriving in shuttles that had to navigate through debris fields where the dead still floated in the cold vacuum. Ambassador Daewon returned to his role as humanity's representative, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The Council members who had dismissed humanity's warnings now approached him with respect. Some even offered formal apologies. The Melodic Consortium representative, who had called the quantum signatures statistical phantoms, presented Daewon with a ceremonial chime, a gesture of deep respect in their culture. Supreme Arbiter Vorthan opened the session with words that would be remembered for generations. We judged humanity by our own peaceful centuries. We had forgotten that peace is not the natural state of the universe. It is something that must be defended. Humanity remembered what we chose to forget, that sometimes you must strike first to protect others. Not because you seek war, but because you understand the cost of arriving too late. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council established the Combined Defense Initiative, a joint task force dedicated to locating and neutralizing the machine threat. Captain Taemin was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the entire operation, with tactical authority over forces from all Council species. But before accepting the promotion, Taemin made a request. He stood before the council, still wearing his battle-stained uniform, and spoke with a voice heavy with grief. 4 of our captains died defending Thalos. 4. Sung Ho of the Dauntless, Young Sik of the Vigilance, Min Ji of the Guardian, and Hyen Wu of the Resolute. They died believing their own government might condemn them. They died thinking the galaxy would remember them as aggressors. I request that this council honor their sacrifice. Supreme Arbiter Vorthon rose from his seat, and one by one, every council representative stood as well. The council unanimously awards the Star of Unity, our highest honor, to Captain Sung Ho, Young Sik, Min Ji, and Hyen Wu. Let it be recorded that they gave their lives protecting species, not their own, defending people who had doubted them, and standing against an enemy that their own allies refused to see. Let their names be remembered as the first guardians of the new era. As the names were read aloud, the chamber fell into profound silence. Representatives from 17 species, some who breathed oxygen, and some who breathed methane. Some who saw invisible light, and some who perceived reality through quantum states, all united in honoring for humans who had died to protect the galaxy. 3 months later, Fleet Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Vigilance, named after Captain Young Sik's destroyed vessel. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, a mix of humans and aliens learning to work together. Lieutenant Hannah coordinated with a melodic consortium sensor specialist, their different perspectives combining to create a more complete picture of the quantum landscape. Commander J1 trained Council tactical officers in the art of unpredictable warfare, teaching them that sometimes the illogical choice was the correct one. We're detecting a new quantum signature in Sector 7, Hannah reported. Emergence predicted in 45 minutes. Alert the strike force, Taman ordered. Standard suppression protocol. Hit them while they're materializing. As the fleet moved to intercept, Taman reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that it had forgotten the price of peace. Humanity, bloodied by their own wars, had remembered. They had come to the stars hoping to leave their violent past behind, hoping to find a better way. Instead, they had brought the one thing the galaxy desperately needed, the willingness to fight, not for conquest. The ability to strike first, not out of aggression, but out of understanding that sometimes the fastest way to peace is through decisive action. The combined fleet jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward the next emergence point. Behind them, Thalos 4 rebuilt under the protection of orbital defense stations designed using human early warning systems. Across Council space, every species was installing quantum detection grids based on human technology. The galaxy was learning to watch for threats before they arrived. To prepare for war, even during peace, humanity had sought the stars, hoping to find wisdom and peace. They found neither. Instead, they found a galaxy that had grown comfortable, that had forgotten the lessons that every species eventually learns. And so humanity became the teachers, the guardians, the ones who stood watch in the darkness between stars. The machines were still out there, hundreds of swarms waiting to emerge. It would take years, maybe decades, to find and neutralize them all. But now the galaxy was ready. Now they knew what to look for. Now they understood that peace was not the absence of danger, but the presence of those willing to confront it. Admiral Taman watched his diverse crew working together, human and alien, united in purpose. This was what he had hoped to find in the stars. Not the absence of conflict, but beings worth fighting for. Worth protecting? Worth defending even at the cost of everything. The Vigilance dropped into normal space. Weapons charged, quantum disruptors ready. Ahead, another machine swarm was beginning its emergence into reality. And standing between that swarm and the innocent lives it sought to harvest was a fleet that had learned humanity's hardest lesson. Sometimes, the right thing to do is also the most dangerous thing to do. Sometimes, you have to strike first. Not because you want war, but because you understand the cost of peace. And sometimes, the newest member of the galactic community is the one who saves it, simply by remembering what everyone else had forgotten. The galaxy was awake now, and humanity stood watch, as they always would, as they always had. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as guardians who understood that the price of civilization was eternal vigilance, and that the most peaceful among us are those who are capable of violence, but choose to use it only to protect others. The battle for the galaxy's future had begun. And at its forefront stood beings who had learned the hardest way possible that peace was not a gift, but a choice that had to be defended every single day.